Hello everybody, I'm Bob G and I live in Jacksonville Beach, so I just go by the handle JaxBobG. I'd like to welcome you to this channel and let me introduce myself. I created the channel so I could leave comments for some of the YouTube people that I'd been following, but it's occurred to me that it's also a good way to leave something behind for my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, other than just pictures or maybe a little home movie of some sort. And so that's the reason I decided to make a video, and I hope to make it a lot of them because I've got a number of things I think I can share. I'm interested in a lot of different things. I've been retired for a long time. I'm 74 years old. And if there's younger people out there that are still hanging in after these few seconds, I hope you'll stick around just a little bit and see if this is something that might be interesting to you. These aren't going to be epic long videos or anything like that. If you're over 60, then maybe there's a few things I can share from my experiences you might enjoy hearing. Only about 3% of the people, I guess, according to YouTube statistics, are over 65. I haven't seen very many on there, and the few I have seen a little silly, but well, I guess that's okay too. You got to have a little silliness in your life. I had an interesting phone call earlier this week. It was my great-grandson. He's 13 years old, and he was working on a school project, and he was to write an essay, an interview of one of the elders in his family. And apparently they had gotten some information from a topic on the internet called kin keepers. And I hadn't heard that term before. It was new to me. So I Googled it, and it turns out that a kin keeper, according to Google, is somebody who promotes and protects the relationship between family members. Usually it's a matriarch, one of the elders in the family, but it could be a patriarch, a father as well. And in some cultures, I guess it would be the elder father in the family. Anyway, we spent about an hour on the phone, and I've known him well all his life, although he lives in North Carolina and I live in Florida. I don't see him that often, but when I do, we have some very enjoyable chats. He's a really nice young man. And as I told him a few things about my past, he wanted to know about my childhood and later on my career and how much traveling had I done and the types of cultures I'd been exposed to. And he was really surprised. He'd never heard a lot of these things before. And so I told him, well, you know, this is part of leaving your history, your genealogy onto others. Now, on my dad's side of the family, we studied the genealogy, so we're pretty familiar with at least where the family bloodline came from and how many generations split off and we're here and there and the other place. On my mother's side, not so much. They weren't that interested in the genealogy of the family. But I wish I had been able to record some of the things that I did with my dad, the places we went, the things he told me, because his family they were Texans from a ways back in the 1800s, homesteaders. And Texas is a strange state anyway, and I lived there most of my life, so it's okay for me to say that. There are a lot of dry counties, and it seemed like he knew every bootlegger in the dry counties. Go figure. Anyway, he showed me where the old Boot Hill was, where my great-grandfather was buried when he came over to Texas from Georgia. And it was in the middle of a cattle ranch, and just like you picture in the old movies. So anyway, I suppose I could write an autobiography like people did in the old days, but I don't know. They would just sit on a shelf someplace. Picture albums, yes, I've got them, but they don't mean anything unless you can describe what the pictures are all about. And I suppose I could make a video, picture by picture by picture, and say this is when I was in Europe and this one was when I was in South America, but I don't know. That sounds like an awful lot of work. More work than taking a camera that I already have and making videos this way. And just doing it from memory. Memory isn't all that good. I usually think of the good stuff about 5 minutes after I need to say it, but I've got a few notes over here. That's what I keep looking at, and so maybe that'll be okay. Uh, YouTube is a good place to store images and my thoughts and memories. For now, I don't know what it'll be like in the future. I know that they talk about mag tapes, they deteriorate over time, CDs. The technology makes a lot of things obsolete anyway, so I guess this is being in the cloud with all the backups is a good deal. So I've been watching these YouTubers for quite a few years, and there's been a lot of times I wanted to leave a comment for them, but if you click on leave a comment, you've got to have a channel. So I created a channel, and I was able to leave comments for some of the people that I follow, and they're fairly diverse. I watch TED Talks, they're educational talks. That's an interesting series. I like games. For example, I started out watching a replay of Myst that I played years ago, and then Ribbon and so on, and then I watched Portal and Portal 2 series. Love it. I mean, they're great series. Really enjoyed those. So I was able now to leave comments, and I watched some of the Disney vloggers and cooking shows and just all manner of interesting things, because I've got some time on my hands. I've been retired a while. I do volunteer work. Well, it occurred to me after watching a few, especially the people that tell you how to get started, how to create a channel, and then aim toward younger people, how to make money at being a YouTuber. And well, one of the things that they say, oh, by the way, they all say, press the subscribe button and like this video. I guess that helps you get some ratings. I don't really expect to have ratings on a first video. I've looked at some people's first videos, and it takes a little while, so I'll be patient. But I hope you enjoy the content. I've got a lot of ideas for future content. I'd like to put out maybe 3 or 4 videos a month on different things, still related to the kin keeper thought of passing along knowledge and just share some stories that I've heard and stories of my own that I hope will be of interest not only to people my age but to the younger people, or they might look at them later on in life. Anyway, back to my original point. Since I had a YouTube channel, I decided to make a video. Or did I already say that? Damn, I'm going to have to do some editing too. Okay. So I've got a nice little Canon video camera, and it's great. So I decided I use that. I got a different tripod. I had a big stand-up tripod, and I think, well, that won't work because I'm sitting at my desk. I'm in my den or office, the third bedroom of the home actually. And the lighting, I picked up a bar light from Home Depot that you normally use on your workbench. Seems to be pretty good. I guess I'll find out eventually what better lighting is. And the volume is just the camera itself, so that works. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, click on subscribe and like. Now, I got some miles on me, and some of them are pretty hard miles. Like I said, I'm 74 and been around a while. Been married 4 times. My last true love, she passed away about 14 years ago, so I live alone. I've got a cat that's a nuisance. Meows at me when it wants to be fed, or needs the water dish filled, or needs a kitty litter replaced. Once in a while wants to be petted, and I guess that's okay. I'm respectful of others. I try to be respectful of others, but I don't worry about being politically correct. It's hard to keep up with all the changes in terminology. It seems like folks are constantly trying to change the language, change the meaning. And now with the texting, they've got all these abbreviations. Then I have to go to Google to look up the abbreviations from text I get from the young people. It's like, what does that mean? You know, I know a few of them, BTW and Raffle and things like that. But anyway, life is hard, and it's just a matter of learning to survive and accepting the condition that, well, what you got. And by God, if you can't be grateful for what you got, it's hopeless. I mean, no matter how little it seems, you're always better off than somebody else. You're always better off than somebody else. It could be worse. One day as I sat musing alone, a voice came out of the gloom and said, "Cheer up, things could be worse." So I cheered up, and sure enough, things got worse. I heard one time. But for now, I just focus on staying healthy and you know, pursuing interest in my post-career life. I had a busy career, worked a lot of hours, enjoyed what I did. I was in the information technology field, and that was one of the things that my great-grandson, he asked me about. He said, "Well, what did you do in your career?" Well, it was fascinating because I started out early on when computers filled entire rooms. And we didn't have PCs. I didn't even have a hand calculator. I used a slide rule in school. So he was interested in that. In the early days, information systems people, it was a small community. I worked for IBM for a while and for several other companies. Met Bill Gates when he was just starting out. He was at the National Computer Conference one year. And of course, I didn't know who he was and didn't know he'd be a billionaire someday, but so be it. And I try to keep myself alert mentally, try to stay in decent physical shape, and try to have an active social life, because those are vitally important for older folks. Otherwise, a lot of them sink into depression and loneliness, and you know that's when they really start to fail. And oh, by the way, I mentioned early on that a lot of the young people, they call me Uncle Bob. I don't know why, but that's fine. Uncle Bob works. I've done a lot of traveling. And over in Britain, there's a term, and Bob's your uncle is the actual phrase. For example, you might ask directions to some place, and a British person might say, "Oh, you go up the street about 3 blocks, turn right, and Bob's your uncle." And, well, Bob's your uncle. That's right. Aha. Well, I had to look that one up too. Turns out that in the UK, and Bob's your uncle means that's there you have it. There it is. There's a French expression, et voila, voila. I don't know the French. I don't speak French. But anyway. But I've always been fascinated by odd phrases and idioms. Where do they come from? Why do we say those things? And that's a good topic for another video, don't you think? For example, my grandfather used to say, we grow too soon old and too late smart. And I found that that was from an old German saying. And that's really true, unfortunately. Now, I do have some ideas for a list of topics that I think I'd like to go into a little bit. I'm interested in a lot of things. As I mentioned, the origin of idioms and common phrases. I might like to take a look at those. Old guys on trikes. I ride a motor trike. I've got a big old gold wing, and instead of a two-wheeler, which I can't hold up and balance on anymore at my age, I've decided I still like the wind in my face, so I ride a three-wheel motorcycle. Maybe a good topic would be, what's up with the younger generation anyway? What is it they're doing these days? I hear a lot of things, but I don't really see it in some of the people that I meet. That Generation Z or whatever it is, the really young ones, they tend to be more and more isolated, and they are probably too much into their electronics and playing too many games and spending too much time texting, but I use a phone for calling people. That's what it was designed for. I got a desktop computer, I got a laptop computer, I got decent computers with decent storage. I don't know. Anyway, and philosophy of life in general. Now, for folks my age, we could talk about some things that happen after you retire, especially if you live alone. What are you going to do with your time? Now, personally, I don't golf. I don't go fishing. I don't have a boat. I do ride the motorcycle. I do take trips occasionally, so that's good. That's time on the road and time to go new places and meet new people. So that's a good thing. I do volunteer work. I volunteered for many, many years in the community theater, and I built sets and I did some acting. I was on stage. I was on the board of directors at a couple of community theaters, and I enjoyed that for the time that I did it. I was a docent at a historical museum for a while, Beaches Historical Museum. For the last 13 years, I've been volunteering at a local hospital. I do enjoy that. So these are some things that I might talk about a little more in depth as to how we can go about volunteering, how we can not burn ourselves out volunteering, and so how that adds to your life. And of course, I try to stay involved socially. I know a lot of people around here. I know my neighbors, they know me. They look for me if they don't see me for a few days, and one might come knock on the door, make sure I'm okay. That's good. I like to help others when I can and just kind of pay it forward. Occasionally, if I'm in a line at a store, and like I bought groceries this morning, and somebody steps up behind me and they've only got 1 or 2 items, so I make sure that, they get up front. There's no sense in them standing behind me with my grocery cart. I don't pay too much attention to whether food is non-GMO or GMO. As far as I'm concerned, all food is genetically modified. I mean, look at corn. Corn was just a wild grass before the Incans or the Peruvians or whoever it was, started cultivating it. Tomatoes, those were thought to be poisonous until they were cultivated and modified through interbreeding. So, I mean, look at the animals. Most animals that we use for food have been genetically modified through breeding, selective breeding. That's genetic modification. So, I don't know. And then there's the big area of how do you stay financially healthy? I've tried to give advice to some of the younger folks, grandkids that are in the working world, and I'll say, are you in a 401k plan? And they'll say, oh, no, we don't do that. And I said, it's money laying on the table. Take it. If your company's going to put up 3% against your 3%, that's 6% of your income. It's going toward your savings, your retirement. Well, yeah, I'm not worried about retirement right now, or whatever the excuse is. They just don't see it. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I've always been a saver, but I think that's because my older generation was poverty-minded, having gone through the Depression, and you saved a penny, you saved a nickel, and eventually you could afford what you wanted. And my goodness. But I also try to tell the young folks they need to balance their work life and their personal life, because your family is important. It's an important part of everything you do. And I know work life gives you an identity, and it gives you a purpose. You got to get up in the morning, you got to earn the paycheck so you can pay the bills, but you can get into a rat race that way, and that's not healthy. So I like to coach younger folks too on balance. And so I guess you can see by now that I won't be doing product reviews. Nah, and I'm not doing cooking shows. I'm not DIY, do-it-yourself home repair, or I'm not going to show you how to change the oil in the motorcycle. There's already plenty of videos out there on how to do that. I don't do gardening, so there's no gardening tips here. No sewing. So No, I think I'll just stick with sharing experiences, and hopefully in the comments that you leave down below, I will be able to expand these conversations, and we can have our own conversations, and I can go to some of your channels and see what you have to say about these various topics that we get into. If I can help or entertain just a few people on YouTube, I'll be happy. I'll be satisfied with that. And maybe, just maybe, there's one or two folks out there who have never left their own geographical location. Some people never get out of their home state. Some maybe their home city they never get out of for one reason or another. And I can talk about some of the places I've traveled to. There are other people perhaps that are home alone. They don't have activities. They're lonely. They're depressed. And they just need a friendly face, somebody to talk to. Even if I can't hear them talking to me, they can talk to me. They just, you know, we won't be talking to each other at the same time. And there's people who are confined because of physical conditions, and they obviously have to get to the outside world through social media. So, in any event, I hope this will be a memory that I can leave behind for future generations, or you know, even the next generation, to stumble across and to enjoy. Like I said, pictures aren't going to do it. 8mm, 16mm films aren't going to do it, because that stuff, you know, it fades away over time. The cloud is maybe a good answer for leaving something to future generations, because of the technology, because of the duplication, the backup, and you know, the better media. So YouTube's probably the answer, at least for me, to leave something for the kids, for the grandkids, for the great-grandkids. So until next time, take care, stay healthy, be good to yourself and others, and I wish you all the best. Oh yes, subscribe and push the like button on this video. Thanks a lot, and look for my announcement of the next video, which I hope will be fairly soon.